As we're hanging out this morning, I'm talking about a variety of things. But one of the things that has happened from the beginning of 2025 is we've gotten a lot of water, whether through snow or through rain. A number of years ago, there was a band that really loved Messiah that was from England that had a series of really brilliant recordings as I measure these things. And I thought that the songwriters in the band were great. I thought that the performers were great. I thought that music by believers in Messiah tends to be a little narrow in terms of the subjects that we talk about, and sometimes people will not end up dealing with difficult subjects. Instead, we just try and act like our life is always good and we're really happy with things and nothing ever goes wrong. You come to the Lord and then nothing goes wrong afterwards. And that's not my experience, and that's not the experience of the people that I care for and teach in the Messianic congregation that I have. And I'm just really thrilled to take care of this, but I understand that there's difficulty. And this band, amongst other things that they wrote a song called Rain Down. And the song that they wrote called Rain Down, when it came out, our culture has said, rain, rain, go away, come back another day, you know? And we've been kind of resistant to the idea of rain. But biblically, it was an understanding that it had to rain first in the fall into the early winter, and those were called the former rains. Then it also had to rain in what we would call the spring, say from March through May or June, and those were called the latter rains. And so there are places in Scripture where it talks about praying to God during Sukkot, which typically happens in October, and praying to the Lord for the former rains, the rains of the fall into the early winter, and the latter rains, the rains of the spring, so that we would have crops and so that we could feed ourselves, so that the good things would happen. And this British band ends up writing a song called Rain Down. And understanding that the sustenance that we rely on comes from the Lord, and that they had written a song that was boldly countercultural called Rain Down, and celebrating the fact that God gives us water, meant that a band from foggy England was treating rain as though it was a precious commodity, like it might be in the arid, desert-like Middle East. And I listened to the song, and I immediately got what they were relating to. I really liked the song, and it was comparing the sending of God's Spirit, the sending of God's restoration, and His reinvigorating us to the rain that comes from heaven and that physically feeds us. And so I was excited about the song, and I honestly brought it to a camp that I was given the privilege to lead worship at one year. And I played the Rain Down song 3 or 4 times at the camp, and one of the guys who was a good friend of mine said, "Steve, every time you play that song, it rains. There's a cloudburst. There's something going on." And I was looking at it going, yes, God is giving us a physical manifestation and a sign of what He's doing in the spiritual realm. And as we're asking for His glory and His fullness and for God to be working in our hearts, He is physically saying, I'm going to show you physical rain so that you can see that spiritually I'm filling your hearts and I'm doing a transformational change in you. And I wasn't upset about a couple cloudbursts because I was so excited about the spiritual stuff that was going on with us. But I was never asked again to lead praise and worship at that camp. So there obviously were other people who weren't entirely sure of the way that I was praying to God and asking him to send his Spirit using that particular song. So we are in a season and a time right now where God is pouring out water on the region that I'm living in. And I will gladly take the water being poured out upon us just in case he is also pouring out his Spirit in a similar and a complementary fashion. Because a couple cloudy, rainy, overcast days, grass that's growing fast, and the other things going on around us is a small price to pay, just in case God visits us with his Spirit, his love, his kindness, and the fullness of who he is. Shalom.